morning, everyone. Welcome to the September 5th, 2024 Parking, Traffic, and Safety Committee meeting. Would you please take the roll?
Chairman Andrew Bagley.
Here.
Vice Chairman Steve Pesci.
Here.
Mark Siracusa.
Here.
Mary Lou McElwain.
Here.
Erica Wygonick.
Here.
Fire Chief Bill McQuillan.
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney.
Here.
Public Works Director Peter Rice.
Here.
City Manager Karen Kennard.
Here.
David Allen.
Here.
And before we move on to the financial report, I just want to acknowledge this is Steve Pesci's last meeting, for now anyway. He's our vice chair, stepping down after 5 years of service. So
He did say he'd come back and pester us.
For now.
Thank you, Steve.
It's been a pleasure. You'll see me in the audience once in a while.
And I learned this morning that we have a very healthy committee. So if anybody wants some donuts, they're on the front table over there. Anybody in the crowd. But thank you, Steve. Your work, especially on the working groups that you've been a part of, has been invaluable, and the experience that you bring and all of your knowledge.
My pleasure.
With that, can we have the financial report? I would just be looking for a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and moving on to public comment.
We do have the comparisons of the financials from last year.
Oh, that's right. So this was a request.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And it just shows the year-to-date revenue of fiscal 23, which is, our fiscal year ends in July, so think of it as half of 22 and 23. And our year-to-date revenues finalized for 23 and 24. And you can see that the parking revenues increased by 2%. Large drops in the High Hanover Garage because of the construction going on there. And increases in other areas, particularly in Foundry, which helped offset those losses. Any questions?
I would just,
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, of course. That's
and
a good idea.
kudos to the staff for coming up to hitting their target with 2% over. That's pretty good, too.
Well, I'll take the moment to brag about the parking staff and the director, the stewardship that they've done and improvements in terms of professionalizing the operations over the last how many years, Ben? 7? 7.5 years has been, we made it through COVID without, having to go into the general fund, and we continue to spin off $2.5 million direct contribution into the general fund and provide other services that have helped offset taxes to the average household, about $364 per tax bill. So it is definitely an important division within the city. It provides a lot of great services and helps support the vibrant downtown. So thank you, Ben, for your leadership and all the work your staff's done.
Mr. Chair, can I add to that? I have learned from Ben and his staff that parking is an enterprise here, and it's about behavior management and management of assets, really. And Ben would tell you, if he had the microphone, that we may have fewer transactions lately, but there's more money per transaction. There's anywhere between 95 and 97% of non-residents paying these fees, and it really inures to the benefit of the taxpayer here, in the way that Peter said. But kudos to Ben and the staff for recognizing how to manage that asset in a way that respects as much as possible everybody's need for parking. So thank you, Ben.
All right, with that being said, we'll move on to public comment. I do see there's a number of people in the crowd. If you could keep 3 minutes in your heart when you speak, that would be much appreciated.
Excuse me, Chair. Hey, Dave, can we?
Oh, the microphones are one off.
Microphones.
Take one, pass it down.
No.
She said she wasn't going to speak.
Yeah, she did. So that. So.
Yeah, just come up to the chair with the microphone.
Thank you.
And then share your thoughts.
Announce your name.
A name and address to it for the record as well.
It's like.
Meredith Kobzik, 1240 Islington Street. This is my husband, Jay Kobzik. We have lived here 4 years. We moved out here from Amherst, New Hampshire, and we're just a little concerned about the speed on Islington Street. We've My husband met with the police chief a few weeks ago. I've been in touch with Eric. We're watching cars, motorcycles, everybody going sometimes as high as 60 miles an hour on that road. And, you know, we try to ride our bikes there. We watch people go by with strollers and carriages and just pedestrians out doing their thing. And so we're pretty concerned about it. And, I mean, the noise factor is one thing with the Severino trucks going up and down and the liquor store trucks going up and down and the CVS trucks going up and down. And I understand they all have a job to do and they're delivering goods and services and all those things. But we're just asking the city, like, what remediation is there? What, you know, what can be done to sort of calm it's like noise pollution, really, at this point.
And we've had some good discussions with Eric, and thank you, Eric, for expressing some of the things that have been done over the last couple of years. But more recently, I think if you spoke with the mailman who actually, Rick Fansasso, who actually delivers mail every day, he's been doing it for 20 years, and he said the last couple of years have really gotten bad. He couldn't be here today because of his duties as a mailman today. But more importantly, I met with the police chief. Police chief set up some temporary speed signs, but that really didn't do anything. I think what will deter is, and I know it's difficult from a police perspective of getting someone on Islington as far as police staff to watch these speeders, because typically it's early in the morning and then at midday and at 5 o'clock. I mean, we're talking people that are going 40 to 60 miles an hour. And we have several grandchildren that if they made one small move off to the street, that would be a catastrophic.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Jay. I know our time is short, but the town that we came from, I know it was a small town. It was not as big as the city of Portsmouth, but if you hit people where they want to be hit, and that is with a ticket or something, a warning, something, I just don't ever see anybody ever getting stopped. And so I think if you hit them in their pocket, maybe that will be the place that will spread the word that, you know, it's not a joke to be driving that fast. And, you know, guys going up in their motorcycles and popping wheelies and just ripping from, like, Essex, is it Essex or Rutland? Rutland all the way up to where, you know, the beginning of the bike path is on the other side of Islington.
So one last question. Would it be helpful for us to get a survey of all of the people that live on Islington on the West End and get their acknowledgement that the speed is an issue? And we could certainly survey the different residents along Islington, along that section.
All right. Thank you, Meredith and Jay. This part isn't a dialogue, but if you get my contact information from Eric, we can talk offline.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
I'm just going to continue on the same thing, except I've been there forever. You know, I bought the house 30 years ago. And,
Could you just give your name and...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Nancy Yarmack, 1207 Islington. It's a duplex, 1207. Yeah, it's very bad, and I have to say that the worst time in my feeling is when I walk my dog in the morning, and all of the 18-wheelers are heading in to Pick and Pay and other stores, and I know they have to come in, but they come around the corner from 33, and they seem to think that it's okay to go 50 and 60. So you're walking on the sidewalk, and it's a bit frightening because you're only like 4 feet away from these trucks. That is the problem I see as I walk in the area daily. And it's the big trucks. I don't like the speeding people either, but the trucks are frightening. And I did notice on my travels that Woodbury Avenue has a big sign at the beginning of it saying it's a residential area. And I don't see as much speeding there. This big sign is there, and I think it's at both ends by the Rite Aid and at the other end when you start it. It's like people think that little section from the bypass to Plains Field is like free-for-all for getting out or getting in, And we are a residential area. We have sidewalks, we have kids, we have bikes, we have school bus pickups. And I agree with Meredith and Jay. I think it's too fast there, and somebody ought to be there with a speed gun someday and start ticketing people, because if that got around, we might have a better result of people saying, I got to be careful through this section. It's small, it's still a residential area. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
Good morning, Dave Rayom, 81 Langdon Street. I'm here to speak to the all-way stop at the intersection of McDonough and Langdon, which is item 7B on your agenda today. I think most of you were at the site walk on Tuesday. I appreciate you coming out for that. I just want to go over a couple of the key points, I think, of learning that we had from that. So as you saw from that site walk, if you stop at the stop line on Langdon Street, where it crosses McDonough, your sight lines are severely impacted. To the right is the structure of 72 McDonough Street, which goes right up to the sidewalk. You can't see past that. To the left is a city tree. There's a utilities box there and parked cars. You can kind of see if you're in maybe a truck or an SUV, if a truck or SUV is coming, but certainly if you're in a smaller vehicle, a coupe or a sedan, and there's a small vehicle coming, you simply can't see on that side. So the sight lines are very poor. But what has really changed that now says that this should be changed when it's been this way for many years? So a lot of those changes go back to 2017, 2018 timeframe when there was the sewer separation project done in the neighborhood. One of the biggest factors was that we changed Brewster Street from being a two-way street to being a single-way street flowing from Islington to McDonough. So that now makes Langdon Street as the only street in the area one way. It goes out towards Islington. So you have Rock Street coming from Islington into the neighborhood, Brewster, Islington in, Langdon from McDonough out, Cornwall, Islington in, and then Rockingham, Islington in until you finally get to Cabot Street, which is two-way, but that's a considerable distance away. So that really does funnel all that traffic that's coming from McDonough Street into going up Langdon, especially if they're looking to go in a westerly direction. Also, the condos on Islington Street that have a garage that backs onto the one-way section to Hanover, all that traffic comes out. They come to the end of Hanover, make a right onto Brewster, make a left onto McDonough, and then the left onto Langdon. So again, another group of vehicles that are coming in there. The other thing that has also happened is there was a crossover that was created at that point in time at the request of the Department of Public Works between the end of Brewster Street and the end of Langdon Street. So there's now, used to be Langdon Street was a very clear, short, dead end on its northernmost end with one house and one business. Now you have this crossover, and a number of vehicles do use it. There's a couple new homes as well on Brewster. Those folks often find it's easier, especially if they're heading in a westerly direction, just to sort of take the crossover and come up to the intersection, go across and straight up onto Langdon Street. As well, we see the trucks, a lot of them providing supplies to the kitchen. When they come down Brewster Street, because they're forced to go in that one-way direction, they just go straight, come around, use the crossover and come up, and then go straight up Langdon, because it's a lot easier than trying to make the very difficult left-hand turn at McDonough and then the similarly difficult turn from McDonough onto Langdon, especially if there's any cars parked there. That's a very narrow portion of the street. So those things have really contributed. Additionally, there's more homes, including mine, that were built on that short section of Langdon Street. All that really has, created more traffic that's going through that intersection, makes the fact that this is a very poor sightline intersection that much more critical. And then, sort of the bonus is that we have seen wrong-way drivers coming out of the end of Langdon. While this is, not the purpose of putting in the three-way stop, it would at least help that vehicles would be, wary for cross traffic, and also would, be moving more slowly through the intersection. So if there was a wrong-way driver, and we have seen collisions, there are documented collisions of that occurring, there would be a better chance of either avoiding a collision or making a less significant collision.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Jane Mitchell Pate. I'm a resident of Hillside Drive. I want to talk about the Greenleaf Avenue Sidewalk project. So first, I want to thank you all for taking the time to plan for our sidewalk and for including the residents in the process of improving our neighborhood. I just want to remind us, especially as we continue to talk about the project and the design, that the project started because residents no longer have safe pedestrian passage out of the neighborhood due to a fence that was put up rather quickly. And while it's nice to consider the other options for the roadway, the core of our request as residents is accessibility in and out of the neighborhood for everyone. So focusing the project on the sidewalk will add safe pedestrian passage to the current roadways that presently allow access in and out of our neighborhood. I personally would like to see the two-way street maintained for accessibility to and from our neighborhood for many reasons. But I have some concerns about the presented option of creating a one-way portion of Greenleaf. I have questions around that being not necessarily safer than our current roadway. I think the proposed plan may create some issues with signage and with the intersection it would create where the new one-way section would meet the bi-directional section right at the mouth of Hillside Drive, where people are also turning in and out of the neighborhood. So if that could be like addressed in future planning and communication about the design, that would be helpful. But I just want to reiterate that safety and accessibility for everyone are the priorities of the project. Really implore you to keep that in mind as we continue finalizing and reviewing the plans. I also had a question if the committee has considered placing those plastic temporary line delineator cones on the center line of Greenleaf at the top where Greenleaf connects to Lafayette. To create like a physical but also a visual split of the lanes, which may help with like perceived narrowing, which the committee has alluded to in the past as something that would be a traffic calming measure. I know those are plastic. They can also be removed in the winter, but just wanted to see if that's at all been considered. I know you all have put in a lot of traffic calming measures in our area, and I really appreciate all of those, but just wanted to put another idea out there. That's
Great.
all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Good morning. Greg Hebert from Hillside Drive. Everybody's probably seen me before. Also want to say appreciate not just the opportunity for public comment here, but I thank you for this committee. I think this is where we launched our sidewalk project. I'm sorry, I'm speaking about the old business Greenleaf sidewalk. And that we've come a long way, and it's funded, and we're on schedule for that. And to say for the meeting that we had last week, it's always very helpful to see not just what may be done in the future, but what has been done. Some things that have already done to affect the neighborhood that we live in, and lots of places around are just focused on that, to see the work that's been done by the city over many years. For what's happened in our neighborhood, when we looked at the city's proposal for a potential one-way at the top of the street, we had 86% of our respondents say, no thank you, we want to continue two-way traffic. There was some more information at that meeting, but that was the initial response for that. On a personal note, for our household, we're definitely with that first option that says no change, let's keep traffic two-way. That's definitely how we would prefer things to stay as two-way. We see that as the sidewalk being our safe access to town, and that continued two-way being our access to town in all other ways. That's a key part of living in Portsmouth is being connected to the heart of the city. For the ongoing work that's going to happen for this, we definitely we want to see. I would say we've appreciated like the updates that have happened, and now as things go, and Peter was very helpful at that meeting too, of saying, hey, here's what the timeline will look like, and I know that there's the email chain with that, but as the project goes forward, we would definitely would like to see it as you initially designed it, from the top of Greenleaf down to the lower hillside, and then be able to get kind of updates on how that progress happens. Like as things go, Peter, you had said like, oh, here's when permits will happen, and here's when things go. A little bit of this is just parental angst. We are very hopeful to have the sidewalk in as soon as possible for our school year, and if we can get it in the spring, that would be great, but just to kind of have some of that timeline happen, whatever extra communication can happen is very much appreciated. I want to make sure I haven't missed anything here. Nope, I think that's it. We are very excited to have that sidewalk go, and what we want to make sure is that happens, and to not to minimize the things that may need to happen at the intersection, but also not to tether the sidewalk project and to limit it or slow it down as we look at what potentially can improve, as the city has done for years, to improve the traffic flow there, but to not to have that slow down the sidewalk project and to have that move forward.
Great. Thank you
very
Greg.
much.
Greg, your glasses.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joni Lane. I'm 64 Hillside Drive. So much of what I wanted to say has just been very beautifully articulated by my two other neighbors. So I'm just going to keep it really short and sweet and say that, I think from the very beginning that we've been really needing a safe exit for walkers, bikers, dog walkers, people pushing strollers, and I think the sidewalk that you've worked so hard to make happen is something we're all really excited about, certainly my household, and we're hoping that that just stays on target for the spring of 2025, and that whatever curiosities we have about how to handle the traffic flow on Greenleaf should not be tethered to the sidewalk, because I think that just deserves a more investigation. I think I've written a couple of times to this committee and others on this committee about my concerns. I don't want to go over them all here, but I think that the majority of people on Hillside, based on that survey, feel that they want to keep Greenleaf two-way. So whether or not, we continue exploring the different options, I think it just needs to happen in a secondary manner to the sidewalk. So I just wanted to get on record saying that, and that I really appreciate the swiftness that this has taken, and I'll just leave my comment there. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Are there any other speakers? Do we have anybody online?
Yes, Matt Glenn is online.
Matt, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Nice to see many of you at the ribbon cutting yesterday. Matt Glenn, 34 Harrison Ave. Just quickly, I'd like to very much support the Congress Street narrowing to 2 lanes and sidewalk widening. I think that's a really important thing to improve the sidewalk there. Would love to see that. Also on your agenda, Middle Street at Cass. I think that does make a lot of sense to have some no parking signs to improve the visibility there. I think that's one of the most dangerous spots of Middle Street. There's a lot of cars coming off Cass. I had a near miss outbound last summer riding with my son on a tandem where a driver coming out Cass turning right was not stopping at the stop sign, probably because she wanted to pull out further to be able to see into the street, and kind of kept rolling right and nearly knocked me over. So I think improving the visibility there is a great idea. I also wonder if you could do something with flex posts or anything else to narrow the street at that point. My other near miss just this week was inbound biking in the bike lane. There was a driver turning into Middle Street Shell, and that's one of the locations where you don't have flex posts to prevent drivers from passing on the right. So those flex posts on the inbound lane really do make a difference in terms of stopping the drivers behind from passing on the right. And so I saw about 3 drivers do that, pass on the right, and almost the third one seemed to stop. I proceeded in the bike lane and almost got knocked over when they did decide to turn right, to swerve right. So I recognize outbound, you're not likely to make big changes there, but anything you can do to put some posts up and prevent those unsafe passes and turns would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else online? Nope. All right, with that, I'll close the public comment.
Yeah, one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
30 seconds.
Sure.
Bryce Pate, 175 Hillside Drive. So I just want to chime in with what they've also said, and I agree with their proposed two-way plan for the Greenleaf Lafayette intersection. I just want to make sure that we're not tethering the sidewalk to that plan. The city's ongoing citywide intersection improvement plan, TSM 11 PW 70, has funding from FY25 to FY30 to address intersections like the Lafayette and Greenleaf intersection. So the city is already expecting this to be something that takes up to 5 years. I know there's multiple intersections involved in that, but there's funding in place for 5 years for that, and it feels like we've kind of been trying to mash these two together, which objectively, like, it makes sense to have them so that they're going together, but it has to be at the right opportunity and the right time, and I don't feel like right now we have a worked out plan for that intersection that allows us to join those two together currently. So I feel that this TSM 11 PW 70 has funding in place long term that we can go through and look and get all the data that we need to make a correct assessment on what the future of that intersection looks like. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bryce. And with that, I will close the public.
One more. Jonathan Sandberg raised his hand.
Okay. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, good morning. Jonathan Sandberg, 160 Bartlett Street. I just want to echo Matt in supporting widening the sidewalk on Congress from Chestnut to Middle Maplewood. Right now, that sidewalk is way too narrow. It's impossible for two people, walking down that sidewalk. If two people are coming the other direction, somebody has to go in the street. It's not wide enough. If somebody's pushing a stroller, walking a dog, in a wheelchair, stopping to look at a window display or read a menu, there's not enough room for pedestrians to get by on that narrow of a sidewalk. And of course, we've had precedent of the travel lane being narrowed in previous summers when dining in the street was done there in front of the goat and jumping jays. So we've had the experience of cars having less space in that space. So I think that should be a no-brainer to go ahead and widen those sidewalks and make it more inviting for pedestrians. And also, speaking towards Middle and Cass, I use that intersection multiple times a day, and I have noticed that cars coming off of Cass onto Middle tend to overshoot the stop bar in order to have better sight line before they turn, because from where the stop bar is, you really can't see oncoming traffic from Middle Street. And so I assume that behavior is to mitigate that, the poor sight line because of the parked cars. And I too have had several near misses. It's very dangerous for pedestrians because cars will overshoot the sidewalk and stop deeper into the intersection, and it's unsafe. So I support removing the parking to improve sightlines. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any more? All right, with that, I'll close the public comment for real this time. And moving on with the agenda, presentations. So we're moving on to the Congress Street modifications between Chestnut Street and Maplewood Avenue by DPW.
So this is a graphic of the proposed changes to Congress Street. To the right of the page, over here, this is the Chestnut Street, the Music Hall at the end, Vaughn Mall at this area with the arch. And then to the left of the screen, it's Maplewood Ave, Middle Street, Islington Street intersection. And the area that we're looking to, we're recommending making some changes is in this area between the Vaughn Mall and Maplewood. Currently, there's 3 lanes on this section. We have an exclusive right turn lane, exclusive through lane, and an exclusive left turn lane. And they're all under signal control at the intersection. And what we've seen in past years, we've done outdoor dining in the left turn lane. We've got that left turn lane has gone away and just used the 2 lanes, keeping the exclusive right turn lane and making the middle lane a shared left through lane. So this plan would be to formalize that those changes that have been done in the past with outdoor dining, but not quite to that extent. And this proposal is only to move the curb out about 4 feet from the existing location, enough to widen the sidewalk to a 10-foot wide sidewalk, give ample room for pedestrians to do two-way traffic, and as well as sidewalk tractors to clear snow in the wintertime, and to avoid having people having to step out into traffic to get around other oncoming pedestrians. The lanes would be widened to 13 feet from the current 10-foot width. What we see right now with the 10-foot turning lanes is that large trucks making this right turn often are coming up over this curb on the corner, which is a danger to pedestrians. So the wider turn, a wider lane, they're able to swing wider, take more room up, and avoid that curb. Likewise, it provides more room in the wintertime for snowbanks without making the lanes very, very skinny. We've had analysis of the lane drop done by our third-party consultant, and the city hired them. They looked at the operations, the traffic operations, with that lane reduced in this current proposed lane configuration. And it would operate much as it has with the outdoor dining in place in the summertime. The queues would extend farther back than they do with the 3 lanes, obviously, but don't expect the queuing to go much farther on average than the Chestnut Street intersection. And because Chestnut Street is only one way away from Congress Street, it's not going to limit the ability for vehicles to get out of Chestnut Street onto Congress Street. We've also seen it's quite common to see loading and parking in this left lane out here, as people run in to get food from the stores. What this plan would do, it would allow us to formalize 2 parking spaces or a loading zone or whatever we determine the best use is to this area here. So we could formalize some parking or loading areas while still maintaining 2 lanes of traffic going past it, making a safer pedestrian area, and having a situation that it works for all. It's really what you call a complete street because you're accommodating pedestrians, trucks, traffic, buses. So this has all come together because of outdoor dining has shown that it's worked. We've changed the pedestrian crossings here at this intersection to eliminate a lot of delay to that due to pedestrian timings. And with our upcoming Fleet Street project and underground utility work, this is the time to be making these decisions to move forward as to what we would like to see with this section of Congress Street. So we brought it to the committee for input and feedback, and would welcome any questions, comments.
Thank you, Eric.
Mr. Chair, I have 2 questions. Does this work in support of or in furtherance of what the Market Square Master Plan is talking about? And my second question will come to me as soon as I hear the answer to the first question.
I believe you can correct me on this, but the Market Square Plan does not come as far out as far as Maplewood. I think it ends more like at Fleet Street.
Okay. Second question, does this accommodate outdoor dining now? Could this accommodate?
You could possibly get some, not to the extent that it was done in the past,
Right. Okay.
because that took a whole lane. You were giving 10 feet to the outdoor dining. This you'd have a 10-foot sidewalk in which you could maybe accommodate some 2 top tables, something like that.
In the way that Cafe Med does it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But, Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
But it's important to note that this is not being driven by outdoor dining.
Right.
This is really a pedestrian safety, operational challenges. We can't run sidewalk tractors down that without breaking storefront windows, which we've done multiple times. So, this is really an operational change that is needed.
Erica?
I think it's great. I think we definitely have real world tested it with the lane closures with outdoor dining. It's been fine. I'm not at all worried about congestion operations. I do wonder, and I think we definitely need wider sidewalks. We had a list of all the things, but we didn't hear people carrying pizzas. You can't carry a pizza and have someone walk past you. Really important thing. I appreciate your comment about needing the 13-foot lane to accommodate trucks making that right turn. Do both lanes need to be 13? I mean, 13 feet is really wide. I would love it if we could make them smaller. If we need to for trucks, that's fine,
Yeah.
but do they both have to be 13 feet? Could one of them be 11?
Yeah, because we currently have a problem where the trucks, making the left turn from that left lane, it always cuts over these lanes here. This is a very tight movement as well. And we're looking to, bump this out, make this less of a crossing distance for pedestrians. So giving the trucks the ability to swing to the right when they're making the left turn would definitely be an improvement. I don't know if you've seen when we've had the middle lane closed out there right now recently, the past few weeks, we've actually had to put the cones in the middle of the lane in order for the trucks to get that room to swing wide. So this would be, accommodating that as a permanent condition.
But if it was only a 12-foot lane and then it was even a foot, right? Like, would that make a difference? Wouldn't it?
You do 12 and a 1-foot shoulder.
I have 12 and
the fog line.
11 feet of sidewalk. I mean, the more space we have on that sidewalk, I think the better. And the narrower the lanes the narrowest lane that gets the job done here, I think, is.
Peter?
Eric, you had, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought you had mentioned, people double parking and having a little bit more wiggle room to get around and keep things moving, as just based on the behavior we've seen, even with a lane shut down, there's still people pulling out and doing that. And this gives that little bit more for people to get around that double parked car.
I think this would make it worse. Like, I think if we have more space, it gives people the space to do it. If there's lanes that are the width that they need to be, then there's not space to pull over. We have 2 parking spaces, people will move on. The reason that people were parked over there when we had the lane closure is because it blocked out space, so there was almost like protected space that someone could pull over and park. I think if we, looking at the way it tapers back to the parking there and it's wider, I think that just invites people to double park.
So we could do a pilot on this, but I'm pretty sure you're going to have people
still doing it
and making it really difficult when, a large truck's just offloading, they're dropping stuff off, and they're not going to want to go from the loading zone. We see it now on Daniel Street. We see it now, all throughout the downtown. I feel pretty strongly that we got to leave a little bit extra.
Dave?
Yeah, I guess I'd be in favor of this, but do have the concerns about not so much the person running in and picking up their pizza, because you can get by a car, but you got 3 or 4 restaurants right there that are going to be unloading on a daily basis. It's just when the trucks are there, right now you lose that lane, but you can still squeeze by on the middle lane. So I don't know if those can be designated as loading zones and there can be some enforcement on timing of deliveries. I don't know. I'd be concerned with the people, a truck parked there unloading for 15 minutes and pretty much blocking that one lane.
Steve?
I'm wondering if the 12-foot with the 1-foot fog line's the compromise here, but I want to also suggest that we put sharrows down in these lanes. It may be self-evident to us and those who ride here, but we have a lot of tourists, and just reminding them of the shared use of our travel lanes by bikes and vehicles.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
It is our policy to put sharrows throughout the downtown. The challenge is not having budget, and even when we do have staffing, or even when we do have it, we're not able to keep up with the line pavement markings that we have. So, yes, I agree. And we will work to get that done.
Erica?
I wonder with the truck parking issue, the 2 proposed parking spaces, it's hard to, I don't know if that's big enough for a truck to pull over, if we need to make them a little bigger and make them loading in the morning. I think it would be, if we know that's an issue, if we know truck loading is an issue, then we need to have a plan for it. And I don't think we want to be tacitly encouraging people to double park, even if it's for loading and unloading. If we're going to have spaces there, we have space that we can dedicate for that purpose. Maybe we need to enforce it, which I know is, I'm sorry, I know you guys have a lot on your plate, and adding enforcement to your plate is not something anyone wants to do. But yeah.
Mary Lou?
Yes, I just want to comment on widening the sidewalks. I think it's so important when we have the opportunity in downtown. It is jam-packed. And it's not safe. I had my little grandchildren, and I was pushing them towards the buildings all throughout downtown because people were streaming, and always felt as if the cars were just going to hit the curb and come up on the sidewalk. So I think widening the sidewalks wherever it's possible is really important downtown.
Fire Chief?
Question for Public Works staff. Isn't there a loading zone on the top right of the map here in front of the Macintosh block on Congress Street?
Oh, right here?
Yeah.
Yes, there is a loading zone there during the day. Then
Right, for deliveries. I know we were just discussing truck traffic.
that gets a lot of usage.
Another question. I've never seen vehicles coming down Chestnut and turning left on Congress. Is that a one-way?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
All right. And I fully support this. I tend to agree with Erica. I would like to see a 12-foot lane and an 11-foot lane. I think because it would push the sidewalks out to the full 10 feet, because if you look at the drawings, I think they go down as low as 9.8 with this proposed plan. It would also, because we're pushing the sidewalks to the right or up, it's almost acting like the fog line. It's pushing the trucks that have to turn left to the right anyway. So it gives them that clearance. So I think that might be a nice compromise because 13-foot lanes are wide. And I would even, if we had to bump the 2 parking spaces, I think maybe that should be a loading zone. And if we had to make it just a smidge longer to accommodate the food service trucks, and as mentioned, we don't like to put things on the police department, but most of those food service trucks are there every week or every couple of days. So I think if we had a targeted enforcement after we made these changes and really let the vast majority of the drop-off trucks know that they have to use the loading zone or circle around and come back, we might be able to accommodate that.
Forgive me if this
Commander?
has been, thank you. Forgive me if this has been mentioned. Could that be a loading zone that acts as either 15-minute parking or parking after a certain time in the way that the one across?
I would expect that would be.
Yeah.
One of the design issues we're running into down there is that the sidewalk does widen out. That's where we can get the 2 parking spaces. But then if you lengthen these parking spaces or loading zone, then you're not going to be able to do a 10-foot sidewalk up here if you do that. But we might be able to tweak that a little bit to see you.
Yeah, Dave DeFosis from Public Works. Good morning. This graphic was meant to be something to talk about, and I think we gathered enough input from you, which is really what we were looking for today, that we can do a final design on this now that we've heard your input. So this project, as alluded to, is part of the Fleet Street project, and it's going into final design in the next month or so. So this is great. I think we heard the feedback that we needed to hear so that we could do a final design iteration. And I think we agree that those 15-minute spaces should be loading maybe till 11 a.m. and then they switch over to 15-minute spaces, and that would help with the load from the restaurants. So
Thank you. And Dave, just to clarify, because I think I know the answer, but we're just working on one side of the street, just that one sidewalk, not the opposing side. That is wide enough as is.
So, correct. As intended currently, the sidewalk on the other side of the street is sufficiently wide. Would probably be worked on just to make sure that it's fully handicap accessible before we leave the area again. But principally, the change is on the left side of the street.
Okay, thank you. Dave? Dave Allen?
The other point is, I think, as far as enforcement, we do have parking enforcement that could probably
Yeah, the parking enforcement officers
would be able
that
to take care of
they're
that.
separate from the police department, part of the parking division.
And they could enforce any sort of, okay.
All right. Well, I think this is exciting, so I'm happy to bring this to the council. Do we need a motion to approve proposed changes to Congress Street between Chestnut Street and Maplewood Avenue?
Mr. Chair, I'd motion that we have staff continue to develop the proposed changes and try to incorporate some of the suggestions that have been made at today's meeting and report back closer to when we're going to start the work itself, because it's a couple years out before this work is going to likely get going.
I'll second that.
Okay. Erica?
Is there time to? There's time to report back. You said you were going to get to final design
So
next
we're going
month.
to
Does that
final-
cause a problem
right.
if you have
So
to report back?
Right now, the Fleet Street project's probably going to end up starting in the Vaughan Mall.
Okay.
It's probably going to start in the Vaughan Mall, maybe as soon as spring. And we're just trying to finalize the utility design, and that is going to be dependent on where that curb line ends up to determine whether or not we need to move the rather ancient telephone lines that are under the street at this point. So even though I think we've gathered enough information that we can go to final design and figure out what we need to do for engineering and not necessarily be locked in all the way to final design. We don't need that answer right off.
Okay.
I think we've heard enough that we can.
I just,
So actually,
I agree with your sentiment. I just don't want to cause
so
problems
what
with
I'd like to
timing.
do is
Yeah.
just kind of lay the table, set the table. The Fleet Street project's actually made up of 3 separate initiatives, which is the Fleet Street itself. In order to enable that project, which was, was from State Street all the way over to Hanover, in order to do that, we have to do a drainage project from Hanover to Maplewood Avenue near the North Cemetery, an outlet in the North Mill Pond.
Wow.
So that's the current phase that's going on right now. Concurrently with that, the Vaughan Mall portion of this project, which was not originally envisioned to be done concurrently, we had some challenges with sewer collapse in the mall. The utilities are 150-year-old sewer pipe, probably 110-year-old water pipe. A lot of old stuff that's starting to fail. So that has to move forward as quickly as possible. The last portion of it, being Congress and Fleet Street itself, will be done as a third step. So the construction of Hanover will be done hopefully next year, along with Vaughan Mall, and then the year after, we'll do Fleet and Congress. So there is some time. As you may recall, we did do a pretty extensive design charrette review of the Fleet Street portion. And that, did recommend going one way at the time. However, I'm sure this, people have had a chance to think about it. We'll be able to revisit that. So I just to add to what Dave was saying.
Right. Because of all the complexities of working underground with the utilities and keeping a fully functional downtown occupied, everything has to be phased. So, as Peter alluded to, Maplewood Avenue, Vaughan, Congress, and Fleet are really 4 different project areas that will happen in a specific order to keep all the sewer, water, and drainage infrastructure going while we reconstruct downtown slowly.
Don't envy that.
And to Director Rice's point, it's kind of like when you open up your 150-year-old house, when we open up these streets, nothing really seems to go according to plan.
You never know what you're going to find.
Yeah. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then,
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
thank you, Dave. Just because we have some people here, could we get a motion to suspend the rules and bring up item A under old business?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so old business, Greenleaf Avenue, report back on public meeting for sidewalks and traffic calming.
Okay. So just to recap what we had at our public meeting last week with the neighborhood, we presented plans, and this is the current plan, is to construct the sidewalk from along Lafayette and Greenleaf between South Street and the Upper Hillside Drive leg. It is desired to bring the sidewalk all the way to the lower end of Hillside Drive in this section, but then that we do run into issues with easements being required, a private tree that would need to be removed. And so we presented at the meeting options to avoid having to do the easements and as much impact on private property, and that entailed making this section here of Greenleaf a one-way from Lafayette down to this portion of Hillside Drive. That would allow us to shift the traffic over to this section of Greenleaf, avoid eliminating these trees here, introducing some traffic calming measures. But as we heard at the public meeting, and we've heard again this morning, the neighborhood really their priority is to have the sidewalk built as soon as possible. And traffic calming measures, if it didn't delay the project, they could be minimal to it, but there is a lot of pushback still to the one-way option. But this intersection has been a difficult intersection to deal with for many years, and we are trying to address that. We thought this would be an opportunity to combine the 2 projects into one. But we are going forward. Next steps is a tree and greenery committee meeting next week to discuss the removal of these trees here. That would give us the option of putting the sidewalk closer to the street and keeping the Greenleaf Ave in its current configuration, which is 24 feet wide and two-way traffic end to end. So that's where it stands right now. We're still continuing to work on concepts of what it would look like if we did the one-way flow, because even if we just leave the street as is right now and do the sidewalk, it still could be a future project to make some changes, but we're moving forward with the sidewalk project.
Any questions or comments? Mary Lou?
Yes, yeah, I'm glad that you're listening to the 80s. I think he said 86% of the neighbors don't want a one-way street there. I think that's really important.
Although, to be fair, we did get people coming up to us after the meeting and
Yes.
saying, well, they've heard more information and they've changed their mind. They
No, I
like
saw
the
that
one-way,
too. So I had a question that I brought up at that meeting because of there's a path that goes across Greenleaf to the crosswalk light
In this
at
area.
Andrew Jarvis.
Yep.
So I brought that up because that could close just as ABC closed. And that means that the kids, all the residents, are coming up, and the teenage kids are not going to go all the way up and cross at the safest place. They're going to cross, which I think is a very dangerous intersection, where Lafayette and Greenleaf intersect. So I'm wondering if we're going to look at that as a safer intersection. I'm just concerned that kids are going to find another way. They do, to get across that dangerous road.
Mary Lou, can you explain again what?
Well, I'm talking
they're
about,
taking instead?
there is a path that the kids take,
Yep.
that is owned by a resident.
Yeah, it's right through here.
Right. And that's a safe way for people to get to the pool, to get to the high school.
Yep.
If that path gets closed and the sidewalks go up, the kids more people will be crossing at Lafayette and Greenleaf, which, right there, exactly. And I don't think that's the safest place. I think it needs improvement for safety if that path gets closed.
Sure.
It's a
And
potential.
we don't disagree. That's
Yeah, it's
was
a
the whole
potential.
thrust of the
So,
changes that we were proposing.
I know. I'm just reinforcing that because it could happen tomorrow, and you're going to see kids running across the street.
So like the ABC buildings,
Yeah.
if it happens, we will
Well,
come up
I'm
with a
wondering
plan
if
of
there's a
action.
way to work with the resident.
We've reached out to the resident, and in the past, they've said, I'm not telling kids they can't walk through there. I
Yeah.
don't want to give you an easement.
Yeah.
The kids can go through my property.
Right.
It's not a big deal. So
That's that person.
I know.
I think
And
that-
that could
I'm
change.
bringing up an issue that I think if I were a resident, I would be concerned that gets closed and what's going to happen to my kids. They're going to go to
I
the-
don't disagree with you, Mary Lou.
Okay. I'm just bringing it up. I don't expect agreement or disagreement. I'm just bringing it up as an issue.
I think we should bring this to a close.
Yeah.
What?
Well, we don't want to run into a situation. We don't want to create a situation where we have a fence go up
It's
because we're
already
talking about
created.
putting a fence up.
Yeah.
Erica?
Just to, I guess, get on my lane with bandwagon here, do we need 12-foot lanes on Greenleaf? I feel like part of a concern on Greenleaf has been speeding, and so this seems like a good opportunity to maybe drop those to 11-foot lanes to give a little bit more room for the sidewalk. Maybe there's a potential to have some green space between the sidewalk and the road then.
The 24, we would not want to go below 24 with the volume of traffic that's out there. It does carry a lot of traffic, 2,500 cars a day going down there to the bypass. So it's really,
2,500.
it's at a minimum that we would want to go to right now.
Okay.
I mean, we'd be willing to drop it, narrow it up if it was just a one-way section, and because that would take a lot of the traffic off the street. Then you can go to a narrower cross section. We could go down to 22 feet and the rest of it. But
Okay.
All right, so I think next steps is see what happens at Trees and Greenery Committee, because in order for the sidewalk to go in, we need to get some trees, unfortunately, removed.
And we're continuing to work with the abutters who we need easements from in order to do the other portions of it as well.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And jumping back to new business, item B, Port Walk Place, request to renew annual valet parking license agreement for Port Walk HI LLC by business owner, and I'm looking for a motion to approve renewal of the annual valet license agreement for Port Walk HI LLC.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And item C, Port Walk Place, request to renew the annual valet parking license agreement for Parade Residence Hotel LLC by business owner. And I'm looking for a motion to approve renewal of annual valet license agreement for Parade Residence Hotel LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Eric?
This comes up every year. We approve 3 on one side and 3 on the other side, and then when I go out there, there's like 10 valet, like all the parking is valet parking in the north half of that block, like the 3 spaces above that also. It is what it is. I'm not going to not approve this agreement. I just don't understand that.
This is kind of a unique road because the city doesn't own it,
I know.
but we manage it because everybody thinks the city owns it. So I don't have an answer for you, but
I don't have an answer either. I just feel like it deserves acknowledgement. One of us says it every year.
Yeah, it's enforcement and coming out there. You enforce it one day, they'll be right back at it the next. It's tough because they're always got people moving around out there. They've got valets parking the cars, and I don't know, Ben, if you've addressed this with your guys or not, but I mean it's
constant.
Yeah. It's a constant battle because they have signs that they move around and they're not permanent, so they're just plunking them out wherever it's convenient that day.
Yeah, it's one of those 400-year-old city situations that we have. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item D, Middle Street, request to remove parking at intersection with Cass Street by resident, and sample motion is move to schedule a site visit and discuss at the next meeting.
Motion to schedule a site visit and give notice to abutters of the meeting.
Well, we don't give notice to butters here, but you're welcome to walk around and
I just want to make sure the butters know that the city's thinking about taking parking away in front of the residents and businesses.
But that's something that only happens at, like, say, the land use boards. That's not something that we do in PTS. So anybody's welcome to inform the residents, but it wouldn't be an official act of this committee.
Okay, we flyered Middle Street before, and we flyered Dennett Street.
We could make it a request, I think, but we can't make it a...
Well, we flyered Dennett Street, and we got responses. We also flyered...
But what I'm saying is it could be a request, too. But I don't think we have the formal ability to notice the butters.
If I could modify Mark's motion to request that a flyer go out to abutters, because it's different than giving formal notice.
Okay.
I just don't want anybody to be confused that they didn't get certified mail in the...
No, we've used flyers before. Appreciate that.
And that's why we're doing the sidewalk as well, is because it generates
It just
visibility.
gives awareness to the butters. It's transparency and disclosure, and you want to hear from the neighbors.
Are there any comments on this, or do we want to reserve those for after the sidewalk?
I think we should reserve them for after the site walk.
All right. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's see. Item E, Hill Street, request for signage to address vehicles turning around in the private street at the end of Hill Street. And the motion I'm looking for is move to approve installation of dead-end sign on Hill Street at Autumn Street intersection.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion with a slight modification. Refer to staff to post as they deem appropriate. The challenge is, we may, Eric may go out there and evaluate it and determine there's a better configuration. We understand the goal is to limit private through traffic in a street that's or public through traffic on a private street that actually dead ends now because the property owner at the end is kind of cut off that through section. So I would refer it to staff to post as appropriate.
Okay. Erica? Or can we get a second first?
Second. Okay, that's fine. I am fine with us putting up signs, but if this is about enforcement of use of a private street, isn't it up to the landowner to, shouldn't they be posting private
I think
road?
what's happening is they're using a public street to get to a private street, but because there's nowhere to go when you get to the end of the public street, you have to then turn around.
Okay.
Dave?
Just one issue with this, and I checked this going on to Google Maps how I would get to 361 Hanover if I was downtown, and it would send me through Hill Street and the private street essentially to get there. And I know this happened, the same thing happened. Peter Hapney, who, when we built the parking garage and the neighbors requested that we put a barrier across the end of Rock Street. But what happens is these mapping systems send you, they still would send somebody down Rock Street. So he'll have truck deliveries coming down Rock Street that would then have to back up and turn around and find their way through the new. So it's just when you do these dead ends or block these things up, I'm not sure if there's any sort of clearinghouse that says you can put this on the mapping systems, whether it's Google or Apple Maps or whatever, but it will still route people to that dead end. And it's not so bad if it's just a private vehicle, but sometimes you get trucks and stuff going up here and these small streets. But I don't know if the city knows of any sort of clearinghouse that allows you to get in touch with these mapping systems.
There is.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jamie McCarty, our GIS coordinator, can reach out to them and make that. I just wrote that down as an action.
I brought that up.
And this came out of Neighborhood Night Out, so kudos to the Neighborhood Committee for.
Yeah.
Erica, did you have something?
No, I was
All
voting
those
in my head.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And F, City Ordinance, Chapter 7, Vehicles, Traffic, and Parking. Proposed change to the Section 7.1004, towing or immobilization of motor vehicles for non-payment of parking fines requested by DPW. And this sample motion is moved to approve the changes to Section 7.1004 as presented.
Mr. Chair, Director Fletcher's here, along with Jane Farini from the Legal Department, if there's any questions from the board.
If we can get somebody to approve in a second, then we can have a discussion.
Second.
And I believe this is just to make it a little bit more modern. If somebody gets too many parking tickets, we struggle to get in touch with them. This would allow us to put a sticker on their window, and they would be aware before they got the boot.
Basically, that's it. I can explain a little bit further. The current ordinance, we will put a sticker on the vehicle. It's called a red tag, even though it's orange. And that is a notice, but the current ordinance forces us to send certified mail to actually immobilize or remove the vehicle. Certified mail may have been the best methodology when this ordinance was written, but it's no longer effective. About 80% of the people just don't go pick up the mail knowing what it probably is, and then their balances will swell, and then they get upset at us for allowing things to go on too long when we finally do get to them, and they get huge bills. So this allows for regular mail and also for the tag itself, as long as it contains the certain information that it will and does, to act as that notice and that actionable notice. So we can actually help people out by shortening the amount of time that they have to address the situation.
Any questions?
The rest of it's cleanup. This is a gobbledygook ordinance.
Erica?
Can I ask a question? Is that like legally binding? Do we need to use certified mail for something like that, or is it okay?
One of the things that you need to remember is they get notice, like for each ticket, a physical ticket plus a letter, and then once they get to the $250, they get a letter. And then now the option is to also get the sticker.
Okay.
So they're getting a lot of notice.
Yeah.
So notice has to be reasonably calculated to inform, right? And the good thing about this, the reason I'm comfortable with this, is that our sticker is now expanding the time by which people can respond. So it's 7 days.
Okay.
So now they get the sticker. They are not booted. They have 7 days to resolve and work with our parking clerks and our parking staff, which they do. And as Ben said, too, a lot of this is just modernizing the language a little bit, defining terms so we can match our notices and our letters and our ordinance, switching the order of towing and immobilization because we rarely tow. We usually immobilize. So I think because there's lots of notice, it would be one thing if this was the only means by which someone was notified. But because you get a physical ticket each time, you get a letter if you haven't paid because of your fine, then you're getting another letter when you get to $250, then you're getting 7 days to respond. I think that we've built in a lot of a lot of ways by which we contact folks.
Great.
And then just define terms so that we can match up all our other communication.
Great, thank you. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, item letter G, Hancock Street at Washington Street, request for all-way stop by resident, and sample motion would be moved to schedule a site visit and refer to staff for further evaluation and report back. And
I'll
could
make
we
that
do the
motion.
site? Oh, yes, please.
I'm just making the motion.
Okay. and
A second.
Would this be something we could do at the same time as the other site visit?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd have to just make sure we're clear where we're starting.
Half and half.
That happens.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So do we want to make that point right now? So where's our other site visit?
For me, it's easiest if we do
Middle and
Cass Street,
Cass.
because I live right there.
So we will start at Cass.
Yeah, bring your donuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And convoy over.
This will be the second spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll miss you there.
Oh.
I think Steve said it, right?
All right. And then old business, we've already done item A. So item B, McDonough Street, request for all-way stop control at intersection with Langdon Street by residents. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the installation of stop signs on McDonough Street to create all-way stop control at the intersection with Langdon Street.
Go ahead. I'll make the motion. I'll second, yeah.
All right. And I think Dave actually explained it pretty well.
Yes.
And we had the site walk. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Erica, did you have a?
I think I would like to request, if we are going to put in always stop there, I know we put in a one-way do not enter sign at the far end of the intersection. I think it would be good to put one facing, I'm confused with the orientation here now. If someone was driving the wrong way from Islington approaching McDonough, I think at the intersection, if the other three approaches have stop signs, that approach should have a wrong way, do not enter
Or just a wrong way.
at that intersection.
It does at the Islington end. Where
At the Islington end, but I think at this end too.
But what it's
well, at that point,
it's okay to go that way.
Not from there.
Well, at that point, they'd have to back up. I mean,
Fine. I mean, I think the issue is that people are blowing through that intersection unexpectedly.
Didn't we put a new sign up recently, though?
yes, there's a new one-way sign at the Islington end.
Right.
I mean, we could put a one-way sign here as well, but I mean, putting a sign up facing traffic that's coming the wrong way is kind of encouraging the wrong way.
I mean, I think it's reminding them it's the wrong way. Or we could do paint on the road. I mean, I think there's options. If there's a steady stream of people still driving the wrong way on the road, and that it sounds like that's as much of the issue here as the other concerns, and I think we should also be looking at how we can make sure we're discouraging people from going the wrong way.
Yeah, but I think the place for that would be the Islington end, where they're.
I think it's good that we have it at the Islington end. It does sound like there may be people who are leaving homes
I think,
or joining from within the road as opposed to.
And the problem has really become acute with the Islington Street construction, because as
I
traffic
agree.
is coming into town, they're looking for the next side street that they can scoot down. And
totally.
There was no one-way sign out there, so they thought, oh, wait, here's Langdon,
Might as
we
well,
come down
right.
that way. But with the signage and with the construction finishing up, I really don't think it's going to be an issue, but, you know, we can keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
I'd recommend we just monitor it and.
I'm fine with that.
If necessary.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Moving on to informational items, police monthly accident report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the month of July, we tracked at 86 total crashes. 51 of those, 86 were reportable. We had no instances of of bicyclists and car crashes, and we had 2 instances of pedestrian car crashes in July.
Thank you, Chief. And informational items, city road construction projects update from Eric Eby.
Okay, construction continues. Well, the biggest change now is Maplewood Ave Bridge has been closed, and that will be closed until, I think, December, So several months there. The detour signs are in place, and we've been monitoring that. It's caused a lot of traffic on Market Street and Bartlett
Or
Street,
November.
Woodbury. So
November, December?
Yes.
It's creeping.
November, December?
December.
December.
December is when the bridge should reopen for the winter.
I like Peter's answer better.
Well, yes.
It's some off-road.
We're optimistic.
The good news is it's open to pedestrian traffic.
Yes, thank you.
And bicycles.
Including bicyclists.
I do have one question on that. I did hear a comment that some people were still riding their bikes across. Do we have a walk your bike sign, or could we put a walk your bike sign to remind people that they should walk the bike across the sidewalk?
We can do that. I'm not sure they're going to follow that direction, but we can do that.
I read signs.
It's a big challenge for those of us in the Creek neighborhood over in the between the Bartlett Street project, and we're feeling very isolated and detached. So,
And we had some problems with the signal at Bartlett Street and CVS, and
Yes.
we fixed those yesterday. So things should be moving a little bit better.
They were. They have been.
And Market Street, we've had signal problems out there, which we are adjusting as well. So we are constantly monitoring it, trying to get it as good as good.
The city's done a really good job of putting out those notices on the updates.
Yeah.
You know, if you're on the mailing list for emails, it's a good resource. The public should.
The Islington Street detour will continue for another week. That's with the work at the Congress Street intersection where we've had to completely close off that end. So,
You know, at least an email a week is good.
And Steve?
I notice on the Hodgson Street inbound at Kate, the stop sign, Hodgson approaching Kate, that queues up, now with the construction, and people seem to think it's not really a stop, and they just block the lane, and we need some courtesy there. I don't know how to reinforce a stop sign, but that's become a flashpoint for bad driver behavior. So, just encouraging people to please be courteous.
Good news is that people are anxious and they're driving slow through that area.
Yes, well,
So
you don't have a choice.
that's the plus.
All right. We have.
Plus.
Oh, and one other item's not on here, but we did get notice from DOT, State DOT, that we've been awarded a CMAQ, which is Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Grant, to remove the traffic signal on the bypass at the intersection of Coakley and Cottage.
Nice.
That's huge.
That'll make a lot of people happy.
Yes.
How long is that? A couple years, typically?
Yeah, probably. As part of that, a connector road needs to be built between Coakley and Borthwick.
Yeah.
And that's a key part of the project, so.
That's good.
Excellent. And then proposed state legislation update. We're missing Jane, so I don't know if.
Yes, they're in the packet. One was to, if you want to read through it, one was to establish a council to study the impacts of electric vehicles, e-mobility devices, and the batteries on first responders. And so there's a council's been put together to look at those impacts of electric vehicles and how they should be responded to.
Okay. And I've had a couple residents ask me about this, the fire chief. Do we have any concerns with particularly underground parking in new apartments and hotels with electric vehicles, or do we have a plan of attack?
It is a concern. We're aware of it. One of the problems as the electric vehicle industry takes off, right, is that we're seeing more and more of them. And then, obviously, the more of them there are, the more incidents there are, right? Not to say that there are more incidents with electric vehicles than combustion engine vehicles, but, right, they seem to be a little bit more high profile. The larger concern for us at the moment is not so much in the automotive industry, but rather in the scooters and bikes, hoverboards, that type of thing, because some of the replacement batteries are off-brand and they're not Underwriter Laboratory tested. They're sort of sub-marketed, and that's a huge problem that you see in New York City, where they've had issues with their public housing and where they're trying to have these devices more strictly prohibited and monitored, because these off-brand batteries that tend to fail easy when they're being recharged, and even sometimes not being recharged just from physical damage, starting fires. So it's certainly something that we're aware of, and we're trying to stay on top of, but emerging technology, right, and what to do.
Great. Thanks, Chief.
Sure.
And then Seacoast Greenway Rail Trail rules. The ribbon cutting yesterday was extremely well attended. The vice president even drove by.
Yeah.
And I think the two biggest takeaways from here is leash and control pets, and that no electric vehicles except for wheelchairs and Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes. I think those are questions that have been asked quite a bit as this wonderful new facility has kind of come online. And I want to thank Dave, because I know he's been very instrumental for the last very long time in making this happen.
How's Fish and Game going to monitor hunting?
Good question.
Well, it's because they do use that to access the sidewalks.
I saw it on Sunday morning, a
So
guy
can
with a
you-
big rifle over his shoulder.
Right, well, that's it. Can you walk down the path with a rifle on your shoulder, then go into the woods? Because that's what they're going to be doing.
I believe it's shotgun. Is it shotgun only?
Well, no, it can be.
I don't think
it's seasonal, muzzle loader.
I think in Portsmouth we have a regulation that's shotgun only.
Yeah.
Well, maybe muzzle loader too. But
I don't know, Chief.
My understanding is, doesn't the season start with bow?
I don't know how the seasons run, but
the muzzle
there's
loader.
no restriction on shotgun only in Portsmouth. You can.
Okay.
It must be distance.
Yeah,
distance
it's
within a-
time of year depending on which type of hunting season is open, whether it's bow, muzzleloader, rifle, what have you. They're all allowed in the city, but obviously they have to follow the fishing, game, and hunting regulations. But all those types are allowed.
So I guess the point would be
The point is that the hunters have always used the railroad trails.
So I would
Railroad to
suggest,
access to
yeah,
go
so
out.
that's probably going to continue to happen. So if you wear bright colors, that probably would be advisable.
Well, yeah, and you got to give notice to the public. I don't know if the state's going to do it, the city's going to do it, because once the hunting season starts, especially for deer, and it starts with bow, muzzle, and then it goes to a shotgun, before all that, the education has to be out there that,
I don't know the answer to that, but we can come back at the next meeting.
Right.
I can suggest that we're going to be putting up trailheads, and they'll have the formal signs and rules and things like that. And this is a set of rules that the city is bringing forward that Northampton, Rye, and Greenland will also be approving. And we wanted to put something fairly simple and fairly straightforward for basic rules. We can put on the trailhead signage some sort of information about the hunting season and dressing appropriately.
This is the first season. This
Yes.
is actually the first season for hunters to go out there under this new.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, the rail trail has been used by walkers and bicycle riders and actually dirt
I've
bikers
seen- I've
for
seen
years.
Hunters for years.
And hunters
So
have been
have I,
out there.
yeah.
And it's not so much, I think that carrying the weapon they can do, it's the discharge that you worry about. And, they can do that off trail. I think I spoke with the city attorney about that. So it's not like we can prohibit carrying weapons on the trail, correct?
Yeah, it's just the foresight.
It feels more like we need to be educating, like I would expect a significant increase in the number of users on the trail, and most people probably are not thinking, I need to wear blaze orange when I'm riding my bike recreationally on a trail.
Right, the first time you see a hunter walking down the trail,
it takes
you're
one
going to start
time.
realizing that you start. And it's
Well, you as an adult, but like kids might not.
Register
So I think a
quick.
sign that just
I was very
reminds people to
surprised.
wear orange during hunting season.
That's something that we could
it's-
potentially put in the city newsletter. or
we
something.
can do that, but it's New England, for God's sakes.
Yeah,
we
but-
hunt. It's we've grown up with this. I mean, it's not something new. Every fall, when you're walking in
I
the woods-
agree, but my
All right,
kids
but I think
know to wear
we're kind of
orange.
shifting far afield.
They know to
I'm
wear
just
orange
saying
when they're
it's-
hiking, but not when they're riding a bike.
All right.
It's just they need to learn this
mountain
rule.
bike in the woods
I agree.
in the fall, and you always know when the hunting season is.
I think that people just
if you're
don't
not
know.
a
We're just
hunter, you're not
educating.
paying attention.
We
When I
just
came
need to
upon these
educate.
Yeah,
guys,
can we get a motion to adjourn, and then we can talk about this offline?
I'll
Yes.
move to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Really?
Aye.
Ron,